Alright, so I thought I'd do a quick video on the 2010 Singapore Grand Prix, but before I recap first practice and kind of what's going down, some news. Lotus has officially announced that they will be returning to their Team Lotus name, giving up Lotus Racing. The reason that's significant is because Team Lotus was the name that was raced under in the 60s and 70s when Lotus were dominant, and continued up into the early mid-90s. So, important switch of names there. Lotus has also announced that they will no longer be using Cosworth-supplied engines and transmissions, but curiously, at least the article that I read seemed to indicate that they had not announced their partnership with Renault, which is who they're reported to have inked a deal with. And I don't believe Lotus would have announced and gotten out of their contract unless they had had a very firm engine, transmission, and KERS supply deal lined up. So, interesting stuff there. Cosworth hasn't really been competitive engine-wise. They are really looking towards, I read some articles with some of the Cosworth development people, and it sounds like they're really looking towards the new engine formula in 2013, the 1.6 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, because that's going to basically reset the clock on everybody's engine development. They switched from the V10s to the V8s, that kind of was a new learning curve, and these small 4-cylinders are going to be a learning curve as well. They're going to produce something shocking out of 1.6 liters. I think it'll be well into the 500-600 horsepower mark. So I think the biggest detraction there, at least from a fan standpoint, is going to be sound. There aren't that many sexy sounding 4-cylinders, although I will give Subaru's turbocharged flat 4 its dues. If you're a car guy, you hear the warble of a WRX or an STI, and you know what it is. It's like a Nissan or Infiniti VQ engine. You can hear it, and it's just one of those sounds. It's like a Porsche Flat 6. It's very distinctive. But anyways, not talking about my favorite engine notes. So Lotus, some pretty cool stuff there. People who haven't been paying attention, HRT, one of the new teams, Hispania Racing, basically almost didn't happen. It was originally another team, I've forgotten the name. Then they, kind of did some shuffling. Ooh, that's a car off. Maybe they parked down there. Did some shuffling financially, team-wise, principal, and were able to get on the grid for the year. And they haven't been running. They've had horrible reliability problems, but they keep doing these weird driver shuffles. They currently have Bruno Senna in the cockpit, with Sakon Yamamoto having taken over for Karun Chandhok. And Karun has been kind of doing some commentary stuff for TV and radio on Formula One. And now, because Karun was out, they took Karun out, put Yamamoto in. Yamamoto, whatever. I'm not too warm on him yet. And then, apparently, Yamamoto got food poisoning. But instead of putting Karun back in the car, who's presumably in Singapore, because I think he's doing more commentating this weekend, instead of putting Karun in the car, who had been racing it pretty solidly this season, as far as number of outings, maybe not results, I'd argue that's probably the team's fault, but instead of putting him in when Yamamoto got food poisoning, they put in Christian Klien, who is a great driver in his own right, but has not raced since 2006. He's a reserve driver, a test driver for Hispania Racing. So I'm not really sure, I feel as though they're not the only person they've really consistently kept in the cockpit has been Bruno Senna. And so if you're not leaving Karun in the car, the opportunities for him to, get comfortable and develop a setup that works for him, et cetera, isn't very good. I should have put on chapstick. So, I'm kind of disappointed with HRT. I think they're really trying to evaluate their driver lineup for next year, which is understandable, but I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense with 4 races to go to toss Clean in there. But whatever, I'm not running HRT, so that's none of my business. I'm trying to think what else. Oh, and of course, this weekend marks the return of Nick Heidfeld. Nick Heidfeld was testing, I think he was test driver for BMW, then he was the official Pirelli test driver for developing their new tires, and then he took over Pedro de la Rosa's spot at Sauber. So 3 different jobs in the span of, I think, a month for Nick Heidfeld. So congrats to him for getting a seat back in F1. There had kind of been a little bit of cynicism that Sauber maybe poached him after he'd done some development work with Pirelli to get a leg up on next year's tires, which, if true, is brilliant. Just, swipe away the test driver. Of course, they're still testing compounds, but they've got the basic setup of the tire finished. So if true, that's pretty awesome for Sauber. But I'm excited to see Nick back in the cockpit. Intelligent Nick, I think is what they call him, his nickname. But interesting, he started, he finished first practice in 13th out of 24, so pretty good run. Having said that, some of the results from first practice, Mark Webber led, Michael Schumacher was second, and Adrian Sutil was third. Having said that, we usually, in the Formula One world, don't pay too much attention to first practice. It can be an early barometer, but the track isn't rubbered in. Teams are still trying to fine-tune their setup. They'll have a general idea of where they're going as far as, aero and everything else is concerned, but there's still a whole lot of tuning to be done. That's why there are 3 free practices. And to top that all off, they have done some resurfacing on the Singapore circuit. Well, it's not a circuit, it's a street course. And it was raining this morning, or this afternoon there. They're so far ahead. I woke up at 7 and first practice was already underway, under the lights, because it's a night race, which is probably one of the reasons I don't like it. I don't like not having a good, aerials are really different at night, seeing the, crowds in the grandstands. I am not a huge night race person, but, yeah, so it had been raining. The Porsche Cup was wet. When they started first practice, they went out on intermediate tires, kind of tiptoed their way around the course. Towards the end, there was also apparently high humidity, so the track wasn't drying very quickly when it did stop raining. So they didn't really get a whole lot of running in on dry tires. Having said that, the circuit doesn't lend itself to passing. It's a very, very tight course, so qualifying is going to be essential. So the teams that can lock in a setup as quickly as possible in second and third practice are going to have a huge leg up on qualifying, and qualifying is going to be huge. And last year, I watched last year's race to just kind of refresh. And last year's problem was brakes. A huge, I don't remember the percentage of the track that's been on the brakes. It's a fair bit, and the track is, it's some pretty relentless braking. There are a bunch of turns. It's not a very high-speed track, I don't think. There are a couple of straights, but it's really, it's a very hard track on brakes and on tires. So especially with it having rained, there's not going to be a whole lot of grip down there, especially for these earlier runs and practice and qualifying. So very interesting to see kind of what goes on. But I'm trying to remember who all went out with brakes. I know Webber came in with overheating brakes, and then they thought they had fixed the problem. He went back out, and I think a lap later, one of his brakes just completely failed. Temperatures were just through the roof, destroyed the pads, and he crashed out. And then I'm trying to think who else. Both Toro Rossos were out. One of them was brakes, one was gearbox. So it's a very demanding track. So it'll be interesting to see. I would love to see Heikki Kovalainen qualify or finish practice. And I know I just prefaced all this by saying that we don't look at what happens in free practice, especially free practice 1. But Heikki Kovalainen did finish practice 1 faster than both Williams cars, faster than Massa's Ferrari, and faster than Hamilton's McLaren. So if Lotus is trying to make a bit of a statement that, hey, we're here, we got the message loud and clear. So it'll be interesting to see. I would love for them to finish, by the end of this season, have out-qualify an established team. Not because of mechanics or, somebody block somebody out on track. I would like for them to qualify faster than, say, a Toro Rosso or a Williams. I think that would be brilliant. A great shot in the arm for that team and for the sport. But anyways, that's that. Free practice is starting in a couple of hours. And so if anything major happens there, I'll have a little blurb. I just kind of wanted to get out the Christian Klien news and some of the Lotus news because I thought that was kind of important. But anyways, that's it for now. Talk to you guys later.